Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, a free site, bettingangle.us, a free site. Today is May 21st, 2025. Game one of the Knicks versus Pacer Eastern Conference Final has not yet taken place. Let's talk about why I grabbed Indy getting 4.5 points at Madison Square Garden in Game 1 yesterday. But first, remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, let me make a few points here. Indy, of course, is the better rested team. Understand, Indy, out of these two teams, is the team that made the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Right? The Knicks did not. Indy did. There's one big difference between these two teams, and both of them are well coached. Both coaches, Thibodeau for the Knicks, Rick Carlisle for the Pacers, have won a NBA Coach of the Year. Right? Thibodeau has won two of those. Understand, Carlisle, of course, was the head coach of the NBA champion Dallas Mavericks. Right? But there's a big difference between these two. I know the Knicks are higher seeded, but it's not record, because the Knicks only had one more win on the season than the Pacers. Right? Believe it or not, it's not defense. The Pacers are ranked 13th in the league. The Knicks are ranked 14th. Right? Both teams can be high-powered offensively. Both of them, top 10 ranked offenses. But the big difference between these two teams, and why the Pacers, and I'm a Knicks fan, right? Why the Pacers have a chance to shock the world and to win the series is because there is a huge gap in terms of pace. The Knicks are a grinded out team. Their pace is 26th in the league. The Pacers are a racehorse. Their pace is 7th in the league. Right? So just understand, something has to give. The game is either going to be a grinded out type game, or it's going to be up and down the court. Now, Thibodeau hasn't won an NBA championship. Is the reason because his players are tired? We need to ask the question. So let's look at the minute distribution. Now, folks, keep in mind, no one on the Pacers, and I mean no one, averaged 35 minutes a game during the regular season. None of the players did. Turner, Siakam, and Halliburton were all between 30 minutes a game and 33.6 minutes a game. Right? You have three other guys between 25 minutes a game and 29 minutes a game. Right? That's the team. Right? Those are the guys playing the heavy minutes. You have a whole other group of guys, of course, below that. Now contrast that with the Knicks. Understand that you have 5 guys on this team. 5. Averaging more minutes per game than anyone on the Indiana Pacers. Right? Karl Anthony Towns, Brunson, Anunoby, Bridges, and Hart all average more than 35 minutes a game. Now you tell me what happens if the pace gets away from them. Right? Tell me what happens if the game becomes an up and down the court game. Right, folks? These guys are going to be too tired. Teams with a fast pace decimate teams like this. Right? Understand, going into game one, the Pacers, as I mentioned, they're better rested. If the Pacers take game one or game two and they just ran Cleveland out of the gym, right? Do you think the Knicks are going to win a single game in Indiana? I'm not sure if they do. Right? Let me say, too, the world's upside down right now. There was a poll, and of course, some players decided they were going to pick Tyrese Halliburton as the most overrated guy in the league. Now, just understand, Tyrese is one of these guys who gets under your skin. He's talking smack. He's good at it. Right? As I said in the past, he talks like Gary Payton used to talk. That rubs some people the wrong way. Right? You need to take that overrated poll as a political poll. Right? People have their own agendas. What you need to know is that Tyrese Halliburton is one of the best point guards in the league. He's an assist machine. He sets the pace. He has his teammates running up and down the court. He has the ultimate credibility. You might recall this playoff season. Tyrese Halliburton from the free throw line, right, gets his own rebound, wins the game for the Pacers. So to me, the Knicks are at risk. The two teams head to head pretty even. I'm surprised the Knicks would be a 4.5-point favorite in game one. That tells me that there are a lot of Knicks fans out there who understand the Knicks community. It's been so long that you had Bernard King attending playoff games against the Boston Celtics. Right? Knicks fans, they're anxious about this. Maybe they flooded betting markets. But in my opinion, Indy shouldn't be a 4.5-point underdog against a lesser rested, more overworked Knicks team. Right? So, I get that the Knicks are close. I get that you have three guys from the same college, Villanova, from the same era, Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges, Jalen Brunson. Right? Folks, all three of those guys are playing 35 or more minutes. Also, the Boston series for me was unconvincing. Right? Two different games. The Knicks are down by more than 20 points. Then they come back. Seems to me that Boston shot themselves in the foot. Then, of course, you had Porzingis. He seemed to be under the weather. Right? You have Tatum. Granted, the game was over, but Tatum snaps an Achilles. That certainly couldn't have worn well in the locker room after that game. Right? Let's just say that Boston game, to me, I'm not sure if the better team won that game. Right? Won that series. Right? So the Knicks look unconvincing. Right about now is where Tom Thibodeau teams start to look run down, isn't it? Again, he has never won an NBA Finals. 2 Coaches of the Year awards. Has never won an NBA Finals. Let me say, too, that the playoffs are not the place to try a lot of new things. Right? You start playing with the rotation. Right? A rotation that's set. Again, 5 guys playing 35 or more minutes per game. Right? 5 of them. Now suddenly you decide, you know what, I need to use my bench more. Is the bench going to be ready? Whereas Indy, a team with no players, playing 35 minutes a game, I believe Carlisle is a guy who can move pieces, right? Do things, change strategy. So I think this series is mispriced. I think the Pacers have a shot to steal one of the first 2 games. Right? Adrenaline only takes you so far. I know there's a group in Detroit that watched that Piston Knicks series and thought that that series could have gone either way, right? You had weird things happening, right? A badly thrown inbounds pass late in the game. Let's just say Detroit. And they were new to the playoffs. They didn't have the experience that Indy has, right? Having made the conference finals last year, right? Detroit had their chances against the Knicks. In other words, the Knicks did not look dominant against the Pistons, right? So to me, Thibodeau is a guy who overdoes it in the regular season. Again, I'm a Knicks fan. I would love nothing more than the Knicks cutting down the nets at the end of the NBA Finals. Right? I hope the Knicks win. But hope isn't part of my betting approach. When I see one team with a much faster playing pace than the other team, and of course it's the slower team that has the five guys who have played 35 minutes per game or more, right? That's a disaster waiting to happen. If Indy goes on a run, if Indy jumps out to a lead, if the Knicks find themselves unable to keep up, if Thibodeau has to cut the minutes of the starters and play his bench more, the Knicks themselves, the players, are going to think to themselves, this is unfamiliar. This is new. And of course, they're playing a Pacer team that's very improved defensively from last year. Right? Let me say, too, I know some people are going to think, come on, Boston blew out this Pacer team in 4 games in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Folks, Boston was a dominant team last year. Understand how dominant. 3 guys, right? And none of them the MVP of the NBA Finals from last year, right? The backcourt, Holiday and White and Jason Tatum, all made the Olympic Games. Understand the problem with playing in the Olympics. The players are bone tired when they get to the playoffs, right? You saw that with Boston this year, but understand, arrested Boston before the Olympics were a dominant team. Boston, of course, had been to the NBA Finals with many of the same players just 2 years earlier. The last year, Golden State won an NBA championship, and Boston was up 2-1 in that series. Right? So I would argue the Boston team that the Knicks just beat wasn't the same as Boston from the year before. I would also argue that experience matters. I know the Knicks made the playoffs last year. Right? They didn't get as far as Indy. Both of these teams are close. Right? Let me also say, too, I don't even like the scoring distribution on the Knicks. Right? I believe the stronger teams have benches, have plan Bs, have plan Cs. Right? When I see Brunson actually be one of the scoring anchors for the Knicks, in addition to, of course, being the guy who, is monitoring the game. He's the point guard. Right? When I see all that Brunson does, the cryptocurrency community will tell you that's a single point of failure. If he has a bad game against an opponent that has the 7th fastest pace in the league, right? And if Brunson's not up to par, the Knicks could lose that game wherever it's played, whether it's in Indy or at Madison Square Garden, right? The Knicks better not lose the home court advantage at any time in this series. If they do, they'll be in trouble. And again, remember That home court is based on the Knicks winning 51 games. Indy won 50. Right? The win total, the difference is negligible. Don't be too convinced by the fact that Indy is the lower seed here. So in game one, out the gate, right, I have Indy, and the casino gave me 4.5 points. Tell us the line you got in the comment section of this YouTube video. Right? Understand too how it is when you play fast-paced teams. It throws you early in the series. Right? They're up and down the court. Now the 1 seed in the Eastern Conference was Cleveland. Cleveland was banged up, right? Truth be told. But Cleveland could not hang. 64 wins, could not hang with this Indiana team's pace. Right? Understand. Cleveland had a single point of failure, just the way their offense was built. Right? Donovan Mitchell put up monster points in some of the games. It wasn't enough to bridge the gap because Indy's so fast flowing. Right? I don't think the Knicks, and keep in mind the Knicks' 5th offensive rating in the NBA, but I just don't think the Knicks have the offense spread out enough to be able to compete with a team that has a deeper bench and uses it more. Right? A team that, doesn't have anyone averaging, not even Halliburton, more than 35 minutes a game. Right? I like Indy in game one. I got 4.5 points, right, with the spread. Point spread play, not a money line play for game one. Right? I think Indy is a sleeper in this series. If you agree, now don't get me wrong, I know the Western Conference has some Goliath-looking teams. 68 win OKC team that's up, 1 game in their series, right? And let's face it too, that team is gifted defensively, right? Certainly compared to both the Knicks and the Pacers, right? But the way I would play it, because you're getting such great odds, is I would take Indy to win it all. Understand, you don't expect Indy to win it all. But first off, injuries happen. We saw Jason Tatum just snap an Achilles, right? If anything happens to Shea, right, he's the scoring leader this year. Right? Understand, OKC is vulnerable if he doesn't score. Right? If anything happens to Shea, things will get interesting. Because Shea, like Brunson, is in a sense the emotional leader of that team. Right? He's the veteran presence on that team, isn't he? Right? They have Jalen Williams. Don't get me wrong. But, if something happens to Shea, OKC might fall apart. Right? This is not to suggest that the T-Wolves are out of it. Right? If you look at the splits on the T-Wolves, you'll notice they're practically as good on the road as they are at home. Right? The fact that they lost game one, and it was interesting because they were up at halftime. Right? It was the second half that got away from them. Doesn't mean that they're going to lose game 2 or lose that series. Right? But what I will say is that you get Indy to win it all. If Indy gets by the Knicks, which is a distinct possibility, folks, this series is a jump ball. Right? Again, one team 51 wins, the other team 50 wins. Right? There's a pacing gap. If it's a Pacer series, the Knicks, with all these guys playing all these minutes, might not be able to keep up. Right? If Indy gets by this series, then you'll be able to hedge. Because Indy's going to be a decided underdog against OKC, right? One team 50 wins, the other team 18 more wins, 68 wins, right? One team a fourth seed, the other team the first seed with, by then, the MVP of the league. Right? Casual fans are going to, hear MVP, Shea, then they're going to find out that, team had the best record in the league, team has home court, and they're going to fall in love with OKC. Right? My point to you is, if you know a team like the Pacers would be the underdog, then what's the harm in getting them now at a multiplier to win it all? And then, later when you're betting the NBA Finals, right, you'll have a lot of leverage to work with. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me hear yours in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.